with AFDB after unsuccessfully contesting to become the vice president on the ticket of the new patriotic party in general elections in Ghana. Before accepting to partner Nana Akufo-Addo during the 2012 elections, Bawumia was the resident representative of the bank in the Zimbabwe country office. Dr. Bawumia is the lead witness in the ongoing challenge of the 2012 presidential election results brought by him and two other petitioners, that's the NPP's chairman, Jacob Echabilamte, and its presidential candidate, Nana Akufo-Addo. At 49, Bawumia has had an accomplished career as an economist. After joining the Bank of Ghana in 2000, he rapidly rose through the ranks to become deputy governor of the bank, a position he held until he entered active politics. We take a break at this point. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now let's do some other stories. Government is set to enforce President John Mahama's directive, which disallows state officials from using government vehicles after working hours. Information Minister Mahamudu, in an exclusive interview with my colleague Abigail Adumako-Enchi, debunked claims the directive was only rumoured, insisting that it will be implemented to the letter to reduce government spending.
The directive is also to ensure that state vehicles are not abused while the general public monitors their use. Officials at some ministries, departments and agencies Joy News sought to follow up enforcement of the directive with last Friday claimed it was mere hearsay as they were yet to receive formal notification. But Information and Media Relations Minister Mahamudu insists government has commenced processes to fast-track the implementation.
Chief of Staff is rigorously implementing that directive. There are a lot of administrative processes involved. There's first the effort to take an inventory of all government vehicles, and you can imagine the many agencies, departments, institutions, authorities, and etc. that we have. Following that, we will then initiate the process of getting VELT to change the number plates of all the vehicles. But immediately, all public officers are being directed that they should avoid the use of government vehicles for private purposes.
For the directive to work, state officials, including ministers, must report to work with their private vehicles and park them together with the state ones while in their offices. But the congestion at the persons of the various ministries is all too glaring. Parking lots are designated for only a few officials, leaving the others to park indiscriminately. So how will the directive work in such circumstances?
The ministry's new car parks are springing up and emerging. If you take the SNIT car park alone, I'm sure it can take all the cars at the ministry. There are similar car parks around the city that are available for use. People somehow just refuse to use those facilities so that we deal with the congestion issues. I think the AMA must be up and doing about managing parking around the ministry so that you have a situation where unless you have a designated spot, maybe a certain level of the staff of the ministries have designated spots within the premises of the ministry where they are allowed to park. Every other person should go use the car parks that are available.
He called on state officials, especially ministers who double as parliamentarians, to ensure there is no conflict of interest while adhering to the directive.
As an MP, you use the vehicle that you've been given in Parliament to go to your constituency and then come back. You park. When you are going to perform Minister of Information functions, you use Minister of Information vehicles and then you go, you come back, you park it. But at the end of the day, the key thing is what I'm doing, is it a public purpose? And you know from your job description what a public purpose is and what a private, exercise or event is. The minister also should have a mechanism for monitoring in his ministry and among his agencies what they are also doing, because it's not just for fun, it's not just for fashion. There is an ultimate end, which is to cut down on government expenditure.
Private vehicles already with a GV number plate will have to be revoked. As per the directive, all number plates of state vehicles are to be made GV to indicate that they are state vehicles. Meanwhile, government says it plans to make soft loans available for state officials to enable them purchase personal vehicles for their private use.
Well, so we'll all keep an eye open and see if we'll see any GV vehicle being used when it's not supposed to be used, actually. But away from that, Parliament will now start to scrutinize ministers based on their competence and promises they make to Ghanaians. The scrutiny will be made by the resurrected Government Assurance Committee of Parliament with support from Star Ghana, the major sponsors of the committee.
Standing orders of Parliament mandates the Government Assurance Committee to hold all government ministers accountable for the promises they make on any platform across the country, including during their vetting. The Dormant Committee, which first came into being in 1993, will also conduct a public hearing, just as the Public Accounts Committee.
We are one of the 4 committees in Parliament that will also be having public hearing. Public hearing in the sense that if a minister makes any promise and the promise is due and he has not fulfilled it, we will call the minister and ask him all about the promises he made and why those promises have not been fulfilled. So it's not just going to be in camera, but it's going to be public hearing.
The chairman also explains that ministers will be assessed according to the timeline of the promises they make on all platforms, based on which recommendations will be made to the leadership of the House.
I've already stated that we are going through a codification as to what constitutes assurance. Yes, indeed, the minister can come through questioning time and he said, I'll construct this and that road by this and that time. So far as he says, I will construct, it's an assurance, and we will take him by that. But we are drawing a program, we are codifying all the assurances using the best practices.
Even though the current mandate of the committee, according to its chair, does not include presidential promises, he says that may be reviewed.
Our committee is supposed basically to write a report to Parliament, for Parliament to forward it to the executives. So our work stops with our report. Now, in our report, there will be recommendations there. We don't want to sound any warning now. When we get there, we'll write our report and we'll recommend to them.
The committee begins its first sitting in September.
Okay, so now let's head back to the Supreme Court, where my colleague Aniu Sabute has been following today's proceedings. Of course, he was in the fast-track High Court earlier for the hearing of the case filed by Justice Bega against Nana Akufo-Addo Akufo-Addo for holding himself out as a lawyer. And of course, he's also now at the Supreme Court for the landmark hearing of the election petition case. Let's cross over now to Aniu Sabute. Good afternoon to you, Sabute. And can you bring us up to speed what's been happening so far? Hello, Osabute. Osabute, good afternoon to you. If you can hear me, bring us up to speed what's been happening so far where you are at the courts.
To the Supreme Court precinct on the second day of the cross-examination of the second petitioner, the New Patriotic Party's Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is still in the dock and is being cross-examined by the first respondent, President Mahama's lawyer, Tony Luther. The court has just taken a short break, but fortunately I have lawyer Maliba, who is a member of the NDC's legal counsel, for one or two chats as to why the break. Thank you very much for coming, for wanting to speak to us.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So obviously, I mean, there was a break. It's pretty much unusual because we normally know that, let's say, 11:45, the lawyers take a break, the judges. But what really brought about this one?
Today was the continuation of the cross-examination, but the court is minded to take bulk tendering rather than the piecemeal tendering. And so, because the court was interested in the bulk tendering, Tony Lita, the counsel for the president, had not arranged his documents in that form. And so there was a need to arrange them in order such that when he tenders them in bulk, they will be in respect of the same subject matter. And so they had to take a break for Tony to put those documents together, and he has to do that with the other side for them to be all on one page. That
when you say other side, that's the petitioners.
That's the petitioners' lawyers. So he had to confer with them so they could arrange and sort out those pink sheets that were the subject matter of what he wanted to cross-examine on. And so this is a short break. We're told 30 minutes. I'm sure we are going to 40 minutes, and I'm sure the court will resume.
Yeah, but so this particular bulk tendering is in respect of the directive given, I think, on Thursday by Justice Atiguba, that as part of the process to move the trial a bit further, you should be able to put everything together. He was unable to do that yesterday.
Partially so. Yesterday's directive was in respect of only the double voting, the double photocopying. So yesterday's directive is not extended to today's tendering. But nonetheless, Tony took it upon himself, because of the spirit that the Supreme Court had already brought about, that we need to expedite. He decided to then put these things together, and he asked of the court that he will want to tender them in bulk so that there could be an expeditious trial. So the directive yesterday did not actually extend to today, but in a spirit of magnanimity, he, Tony Lita himself, decided that I would rather do bulk tendering. And so this break is meant for him to put his house in order and put the documents in that form and tender them in bulk.
Now, my final question to you, I mean, from where you sit, you think that he will be able to finish his cross-examination today?
It is difficult to tell, because if you look at the petitioner's case, they have categorized them into a number of headings. There's overvoting, there's voting without biometric verification, there's a pink sheet not signed, and there's another section. So what Tony is doing is to take them according to those headings. What I know is that he has finished with double pink sheets. This morning he started with overvoting, and I'm sure there are 2 more headings for him to conclude. Probably with this bulk tendering, it will be possible for him to finish, or maybe come back tomorrow and finish.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So that was lawyer Abraham Amaliba, is a member of the NDC's legal council. I must also mention that earlier today, the first petitioner in the person of Nana Akufo-Addo was at the High Court, where allegations by retired Supreme Court Justice Francis Kwegan is challenging his claim that he's a lawyer and that he filed a writ at the High Court for them to sit and deliberate on that matter. The case was called. Unfortunately, Justice Kwegan could not make it to the court. A gentleman who, by name David Gentwa, who said he's a legal counsel, was in the court, and the explanation he gave was that Justice Kwegan, as of the time he was coming to court this morning, was unwell, and he was not in a position to be able to represent himself, and therefore he was representing him. But in the course, when he came, one particular interesting issue came up, has to do with the fact that he did not bring his brief to the courtroom, and therefore it became a bit of a tussle between himself and that of the legal counsel of Nana Akufo-Addo. Nana Akufo-Addo himself was in court, and they are seeking that the case be thrown out because the issues that Justice Kwegan appear to be raising, or the allegations that Nana Akufo-Addo is impersonating one William Adodankwa Akufo-Addo, is causing him grievous harm, and they believe that it's ill intent, it's vexatious, it's frivolous, and therefore they want the court to throw that particular thing out. However, David Gentwa, who says he's representing the retired Supreme Court judge, raised the issue about the fact that the defendant's lawyers are not appearing properly before the court, and therefore he would rather they get an extension for him to go back and come back again. But Lawyer Dami, who was making the argument on behalf of Nana Addo, also talked about the fact that even Justice Kwegan is at the wrong forum, being that as a member of the General Legal Council, he ought to have raised the said allegation he has underneath his belly before them, because according to Act 34 of their own profession, the General Legal Council has the powers to investigate any infractions whatsoever, but he did not do that, and he brought that particular thing before the High Court. However, he still believes that they have a solid ground for the court to dismiss the allegations against their client. According to him, an exhibit from the General Legal Council itself attests to the fact that Nana Akufo-Addo was called to the Middle Temple Bar in 1971. He's a certified lawyer. He's practiced for more than 30 years, and his record is not in dispute. And therefore, they want the case thrown out. But the presiding judge, in the person of Cecilia Sowa, after hearing both arguments, caution counsel for Justice Ekpega that next time if he's coming to the court, he must come with a proper brief for them to start the argument. He also intimated that I must also say that the counsel for Nana Addo also wanted an adjournment for tomorrow, for the hearing of tomorrow, but Sisi Sowa made it clear that that is highly impossible, and therefore they fixed the date for 2nd of May, that is the next month. So 2nd of May, we are back in court again, where the lawyers will be seeking for the High Court to dismiss a writ brought by Justice Ekpega, retired Supreme Court judge, against Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo that is impersonating one William. So that has been the series so far with respect to that. Alfred Bawumia was also in court in respect of his judgment debt allegations at the court, which the Attorney General is trying to extract 51 million Ghana cedis judgment debt allegedly paid to him, which is undeserving. So these are a wrap of the cases that are happening. But for now, the Supreme Court judges have taken a break. We'll be going back, and the cross-examination by lawyer Tony Litha, who is representing the first respondent in the person of John Mahama, will continue his cross-examination of MPP's vice presidential candidate in the 2012 elections, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia.
Very much, Anu Sabute, for bringing us up to speed. From it's been quite a marathon at the courts, if you ask me, from the Supreme Court to the High Court to the Fast Track Court. Lots of issues going on there, but our man Anu Sabute is on the beat, and he gave us all those details right here on the Midday Brief. But let's move along now, and a group of technical experts from ECOWAS member states have commenced a one-week meeting to discuss ways of giving the ECOWAS Parliament the political muscle to become a legislative body. This will enable the body make laws for the sub-region and move on from its current advisory role.
Which has been termed a supplementary act in order to make laws which will bind on member states. Though it was initiated in 2010, it could not materialize due to a number of factors.
The main stumbling block in 2010 was the issue of direct universal adult suffrage and the cost implications of that, of having elections for ECOWAS parliamentarians in every constituency, in every country. It was thought that that would be too expensive. Most of the countries in sub-region are already grappling with conducting their own national elections, and you want to add that layer.
Professor Obiora, however, believes there is some commitment now. Commitment, he says, could translate into success this time round.
You have a cooperation now, increasing cooperation between the Commission, the Council of Ministers, the Authority of Heads of States, and the Parliament. Everyone seems to be on board now. There lies the difference between today and 2013.
That function is currently being performed by ECOWAS Commission, and according to the Communications Director, the mandate should not be a source of conflict.
Friday, when we finish this, we will have a better sense of the direction in which the sub-region is moving in enhancing these powers, so that if we have an understanding, it will now be a sense of, okay, how do we move towards this?
Almost all the experts from the ECOWAS countries have converged in the country for the meeting. Earlier, the group paid a courtesy call on the leadership of the Ghana's parliament.
Well, meanwhile, President Mahama has declared support for full legislative powers for the ECOWAS Parliament. He argued that such powers will enable the sub-regional body deal with issues which are common to nations within the quest for regional integration and strong economies. He was speaking with the Speaker and members of the ECOWAS Parliament who are in the country for the seminar we just spoke about. They called on him at the Flagstaff House yesterday. First, let's hear what the Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament had to say during their visit to the Flagstaff House.
ECOWAS Parliament sends their greetings for several reasons. First, we are aware of the challenges the community have had recently in Mali. But before that, we've had several challenges within the sub-region, from Liberia to Sierra Leone, to Niger, to Guinea-Conakry, to recently in Mali and Guinea-Bissau. The role ECOWAS has played in trying to douse these tensions and be able to bring under control some of these conflicts, it needs a lot of commendation. And we are quite aware of the unique role which Ghana played in all this. So we want to express our gratitude to the people and government of Ghana for standing strongly with the ECOWAS community in some of these crises. As a former member of Parliament, you are very conversant with the role the Parliament plays. Unfortunately, in ECOWAS, what we have is a consultative body. We have an advisory body, and yet we have been called Parliament. We've had this struggle to enhance the powers of Parliament, and today we are getting much closer to it. And because we are holding a special technical session in Ghana to see how we can advance this process, we are more than optimistic for no other reason except that it is holding in Ghana. We believe that Ghana is also home for democracy, and any democratic discussion or conversation that will take place in Ghana, we have no doubt that will yield the desired fruit. So we're happy to be here, and we believe that by the time the history of the evolution of the ECOWAS Parliament will be written, Ghana will have a very special place as the place where the major foundation was laid through this technical meeting. So I want to thank you for giving us opportunity to come to Ghana to hold this session.
That was the president of the ECOWAS Parliament. Now let's find out what President Mahama also had to say in response to that.
All the countries are establishing a democratic system of holding periodic elections, and it appears that our sub-region is making progress. If you look at the African continent, in West Africa, several countries are posting growths above the African average, and that shows that our economies are expanding and we're being given the opportunity to build a better and decent and dignified lives for our people. But it is only when we take advantage of our critical mass as a sub-region that we can make progress at an even faster pace than we're doing. Currently, even though we've signed all the protocols for free movement of goods and people, there are all kinds of restrictions when you want to move around West Africa. There are several border stops, several police barriers, several checks, and it becomes a nightmare to travel by road from each of our countries to the other. And so it is my hope that government, together with the Parliament, will continue to work to try and create a situation where our people can move freely across the sub-region and be able to trade in goods and services freely across the sub-region. As a result of the action of AFISMA, we've been able to bring the situation in northern Mali under control. We are calling the support of the international community to make a case with the United Nations to take over AFISMA as a United Nations operation, because the amount of money that is required to keep those troops there, and we're looking at a troop buildup of almost 8,000, the amount of money required to keep those troops there is phenomenal. And if it is left just to our economies to bear, it would take a toll on us and could weaken our fragile economies further. And so we're adding our voice to the call to the UN to take over the operation. After all, it's a fight against terrorism, and terrorism is a scourge that affects the whole world and not just any particular continent. Our sub-regional legislature, I believe that it should be given full legislative powers, and we'll continue to convince our colleagues who have a fear of taking that step forward that it is a step that will be very positive, and it's a step that will make us able to deal with a lot of issues that we currently are not able to deal with our own national legislation.
Okay, now let's, from the Flagstaff House, let's get into the world of sports. Kind courtesy, Tigo. In sports, Black Stars coach Kwesi Appiah has begun a one-week knowledge-sharing program with the technical team of English side Manchester City. And, well, I'm not so enthused as he is, but Sir Alex Ferguson says Robin Van Persie, or RVP as is popularly known, has had as big an impact as anyone he can remember at Manchester United after helping them win the Premier League.
Ghana Football Association President Kwesi Yantichi confirmed Appiah's training with the English side and stated that it forms part of preparations towards Ghana's qualifying match in the 2014 FIFA World Cup with Sudan in June. The Ghana coach will share technical ideas in the game with the coaches at Carrington Training Ground, led by City boss Roberto Mancini. The training program will be the Black Stars coach's second visit to the former Premiership champions and is part of a cooperation agreement between the GFA and Manchester City. Aside the course, Appiah will also monitor players of the national team as the European season reaches the concluding stages.
Let's do some showbiz now. And ding dong, can you hear the wedding bells tolling? Yes, and it's for who? It's for Ghanaian actress Jackie Appiah. We'll give you more details in our showbiz brief. But also, I've heard of the show Britain's Got Talent. Yes, it's supposed to be for British exhibiting their talents. But 2 Nigerian females and a South African female dancer stole the show at Britain's Got Talent. You can be sure those judges will surely want to learn how to shake their bum in the African style. But okay, that's it for the midday brief, and we'll go back straight now to the Supreme Court for the landmark election petition hearing.